I interact with a ton of record collectors on a daily basis, and I can tell you a lot of people have started collecting just in the past few years. If that's you, I've got a very important piece of advice I'd like to share on this episode of Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record shops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not local, you can always shop online if you're in the United States at ntxvinyl.com, and would love it, of course, if you'd subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, follow us across social media on Facebook and Instagram. I'm here to talk to new collectors today. Like I mentioned, I've got a piece of advice, and it's not groundbreaking. It's going to be really simple. I'm going to tell you all about it. Basically, in 2020, the vinyl boom started. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because vinyl never went away. Did go into kind of what I consider to be the dark days of vinyl, and that's like, mid to late 90s all the way up through 2010, 2015, like that era. Vinyl was a lot harder to come by. There weren't a lot of record shops went out of business because of the streaming era had entered upon us and took over the vast majority of the mainstream in regards to how they consume music. Even today, vinyl is only 10 to 12% of the music industry, whereas, again, 90% of people that consume music, they do it by streaming, right? So, but in 2019, 2020, you had a couple things going on. You had a resurgence of nostalgia, which is a real thing. And then, of course, you had the pandemic, which doubled down on that because you had a lot of people, myself included, probably you, stuck at home looking for something to do. And that's when a whole bunch of people started collecting records, or maybe they restarted collecting. A lot of people had collections, they just didn't pay attention to them, they didn't really listen to them. But with all the time at home, between 2020 and 2022, a lot of people re-engaged with the hobby, which was amazing. It was really cool to see. But what that did is it created a whole lot of FOMO, or fear of missing out. So if you entered the hobby of record collecting in 2020 or 21 or 22 or even today, you would enter into a world where it was very hard to buy the albums you wanted. And it didn't make any sense to a new collector because, it's 2021, you just got a record player, you're working from home full time, you're enjoying the music, the physicality of it, and you're like, man, I would love to get this album. And you go look for the album, and no record stores have it. Can't find it anywhere, can't find it online. So what do? You go to the secondary market. That's eBay, that's Discogs, and you look up the record. And it hasn't been pressed in several years, and it's super expensive. So my big tip based on that is be patient. I assure you, 99% of the music that is out there is going to get reissued. It is going to get repressed. So don't pay the secondary market prices. The only caveat there, the only asterisk, is if you are very specific about only owning an original pressing that came out in 1992 or whatever it may be. I get it. There's a nostalgia there about having that original, and in some cases, the original pressing can sound better than reissues. Not always. But again, the advice is just to be patient. I talk to people all the time. I get emails, I get messages on social media nonstop. Hey, can you get this album? Hey, I want this album. Do you have this? It's too expensive. And I just tell people, be patient. I can't stress it enough, because if the music is, let's say, mainstream, like, if you're looking for something very niche, very obscure that came out in the, late 70s or late 80s, early 90s, whatever, there's a chance it may never get reissued again, and you may have to go that route and pay the secondary market prices. But if the music is somewhat mainstream and it's an artist that is readily available in other formats, meaning you can go stream it, then there's a very good chance that the record label will eventually reissue or repress that album. Why the hell wouldn't they? There's money sitting on the table if there's enough demand there. Again, if it's very niche, if it's very obscure, there might not be enough demand for a pressing of an album, because record labels really aren't going to make any significant money unless they can sell several thousand albums, right? If you can only move a couple hundred albums, there's no money to be made in vinyl, I assure you that. But if there is demand there, then you've just got to be patient. You've got to wait for the label. You've got to wait for the artist to get involved and get a new pressing out into the public's hands. Like that's the reality of it. Now, is it going to happen soon? I don't know. I mean, I'm generalizing, of course. There are hundreds of thousands of different records out there that need to be repressed that are hard to get right now. But the reality is, if it's mainstream, the vast majority of them will happen. They will end up getting reissued. They will be $20, $30, $40, whatever it may be for a new record these days. Now, are you okay with buying a reissue? That's up to you. Again, some people don't want anything to do with reissues. Some people don't want anything to do with original pressings, believe it or not. But the advice for new collectors is just be patient, wait it out. Unless it's an album you have to have right now, just wait it out, because they're all going to come. I assure you, there's no record label out there that's not trying to make money. And if there's demand, if they can sell a couple thousand, there is money to be made in a lot of cases and in most cases. So if you're a new collector, just be patient, wait for the reissue to come. If you're not one of those collectors who has to have the original, or you're okay with the sound being updated with modern mastering technology, then again, just be patient. Wait. Just wait it out. Don't pay the secondary market price. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for an album unless you have to have that original. Wait for the reissue. Wait for the repressing. Your bank account will thank you. Would love to hear your comments. Would love to hear your feedback. As always, my name is G.I. Sanders, and this has been another episode of Talking About Records.